What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Ask the King. Let's get right back into it because I have so many questions to answer. Next question says, "Hi Phil, seeing that you are more of a mature gamer like myself, I wanted to get your opinion on the recent trend of gaming companies that bring you fresh new hardware and absolutely pathetic launch titles. What happened to the days where you had Mario and Duck Hunt to start off your system? Or the brand new Super Mario or Sonic that made you run to the stores to buy a new system? Launch titles for new consoles seem to be a thing of the past. They are now replaced by tech demos sent off as real games." Wow, this guy's pissed, obviously. "I think gaming companies are spending too much time trying to get the product out there instead of actually producing games that make consumers want to buy it in the first place. What do you think? Shane, aka The Smackdown." I think you're spot on, Shane, and I think this is what we've been saying for a while. Anyone who's been like a hardcore gamer is, it seems like when these consoles are released, there's so much artificial hype created around them that there's already demand for the product, and really, then when people get it, they're like, oh, fuck, because there's nothing to play. For example, the Xbox 360, what was on it when it was released? Perfect Dark Zero, and actually, if you can believe it, that was the game people were saying was the best game for the console. Now the game is like, no one even remembers it. There was a racing game. You know, there were like maybe 4 or 5 different launch titles that were like, this is a game that maybe I would buy as a filler game, but I wouldn't, expect this to be like a blockbuster title. And it actually took a couple months before there was anything really worthwhile. If I remember correctly, I believe one of the Call of Duty games was the best game on the console for quite a long time. PS3, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really remember what the launch titles were, but I really don't, again, I don't remember any, like, amazing, outstanding title that was sticking out. In fact, I think one of the major games that was being released as a launch title also was already coming out for 360. So it wasn't like an exclusive. And if anything, the PS3, when it came out, Sony, if you remember, their whole ad campaign wasn't even around games. It was like, oh, get the PS3 because it has Blu-ray. Get the PS3 because it has Bluetooth. It was all about the features of the PS3 and not about the core reason for buying it, which was the fucking games. And Shane makes a great point. If you remember, when Nintendo came out, it got bundled with Super Mario Brothers and or Duck Hunt. When you bought the Nintendo later on, it actually came with Super Mario 3. When you bought the Super Nintendo, it came out with Super Mario World. When you bought the Sega Genesis, it came out with Sonic the Hedgehog. So what the hell happened, to these consoles that all of a sudden they just decided to not put good games with them? And the answer is money. Because, like I said, back then, yeah, there was some hype, but there wasn't this crazy viral internet hype like there is today. Today, like, oh my god, the console's so good, it's going to change our fucking lives, it's going to make waffles for us in the morning and jerk us off at night. People are just out of their minds. There are people standing outside of electronic stores for 3 fucking days to buy the PS3. Are you an idiot? Yes, the answer is yes, you are. If you were one of those people, you're an idiot. And the culture is changing. It's more of, what do I own? Oh, I have a PS3 on launch week. I'm better than all of my fucking friends or whatever. Everyone at school thinks I'm so cool because I got a PS3. I mean, give me a break. I mean, that's so stupid. That's so materialistic that it just makes no sense. These game companies have realized they don't need to release games with the console, because when the console's released, it's not even about the games anymore, it's about the hype. So Shane's dead on. I would love to see, with some of these new consoles coming out, the Nintendo DS, for example, or the 3DS, or the NGP, which is the new PlayStation Portable, why don't you release it with a good game? But the answer again is, they're not gonna. They know that it's gonna sell no matter what. So, money and capitalism will change things in the world, that's for sure. Okay, next question. Hey Phil, did you watch the State of the Union address on January 25th, 2011? And of course he's talking about the State of the Union address in America, where President Obama talks about the state of the country. If you did, what are your thoughts on what is going on with the government, and what would you predict will be happening throughout the year? This is from Jacob Brown. I'm sorry, he left a nickname, Average Gamer 18. Well, here's the thing. I didn't hear the whole thing. I heard parts of it, and I was really getting inspired. Obama, as everyone knows, is one of the best speakers we've had for a president in quite a long time, and really everything sounds great. And he even made this really historic, soundbite saying this is our new Sputnik moment, alluding to back during the space race time, when basically Russia beat us into space, and so America tried to get very competitive and said, listen, we got to land on the moon first, and they rushed, and yes, we actually landed on the moon before Russia, and he's saying this is our next Sputnik moment. The problem right now, the reason why our economy sucks is because we have no innovation. We need to be innovators and make new technologies, and that's how we're going to basically get our money back, because we lost all of it. And I was inspired by that. That made amazing sense to me. And then he stupidly fucking says, well, how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to make sure everyone drives electric cars, and we're going to have wireless internet for 80% of the country. I've talked at certain times about Japan's internet, how Japan's internet is amazingly fast because the government paid for the infrastructure. The government built the lines. The government owns it. And so it's amazingly powerful. That's the kind of stuff that we should be looking to do. Not shitty free Wi-Fi for 80% of the country. We don't have enough fucking people on their Blackberries driving, going like this, and fucking getting into car accidents, and people fucking falling in the fountains because they're all connected by Wi-Fi. I mean, what a dumbass statement that was. And electric cars have not been proven to save any kind of money. In fact, a lot of the times they cost more money than oil because electricity is extremely expensive, and it's not viable for people to buy it. People can't afford anything right now. How are you going to sell people electric cars when people have no fucking money? I mean, he has no idea what he's talking about, and it really pissed me off. If anything, it shows me that what Obama is as a president is he's a really good speaker, he's an inspirational person, but his ideas come from other people. And that's a shame to say that, but that's what it seems to me, because if he sat down and fucking thought about it for 5 minutes, he would know that those two ideas were absolutely ridiculous. So, I was really inspired by the State of the Union, and then I got really, really unimpressed, and I said, boy, am I glad that I really am not involved in politics, because if I were, I'd just be more controversial, because I'd be saying these things all the time. So anyway, that's one political quip. You probably won't get another one from me for quite a while, so enjoy that as it lasts. Alright, up next. Next question. Dear Phil, as fans have previously asked you about the 3DS, could you give us your opinion on the NGP, which is the PSP2, basically, the new version of the PlayStation Portable that's coming out? And he runs down some of the details. It has a touchscreen, trackpad, dual analog sticks, PS3 graphics, trophy support, just like the PS3, but also there's blockbuster games coming out for it, like Uncharted, Little Big Planet, Killzone, Resistance, possibly Metal Gear Solid, and even Call of Duty. In my opinion, it would be better if you waited for that instead. And that's from Nils22317. You want my real opinion? Here's my real opinion. I like portable systems because they're a great time killer. If you're on a trip, if you're on a bus, if you're on a flight, it's a good way to kill time, and it really is fun. I remember when I owned my original Game Boy and I played Tetris, that was great. I remember when I had the first Pokemon, that was great. But I didn't fucking sit here, in a chair playing it for hours on end. And the reason is because it's a tiny fucking screen, alright? The reason that these systems are portable is so that you can take them with you and they kill time in between waiting time. That's really what these were created for originally. And I don't understand this mentality that, like, we need to soup up our portable systems to be just as powerful as consoles. You got the Nintendo 3DS, which is, number one, has 3D technology, but from all accounts, from people who have gotten test versions, after you play it for like an hour, your eyes are fucking killing you, because 3D technology is basically an optical illusion. It fools your eyes, and your eyes aren't meant to be fucked with like that. Now you have the NGP. Wow, this is amazing. I've got, 1080p graphics and surround sound playing on a 2-inch fucking screen with two tiny little speakers. What the fuck was I thinking when I bought this thing? The PS3, it's great that the PS3 has those features, but the PS3 works on a giant TV with a surround sound system. So it makes sense for the PS3 to have those features. It makes absolutely no fucking sense to have those features on a handheld system. Well, I have 1080p graphics, I'm playing Uncharted, but I can't see a goddamn thing, and I can't see any of the detail because I'm playing it on a portable fucking screen. Like, it makes no sense. And I think Sony, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, is continuing in their line of push the technology before there's demand. And yes, we know that when the the NGP is released, it's going to sell out because, as I've already said, there's this artificial hype, there's this internet buzz about these things, and it's like, oh, the new PSP is coming out, and it's not just another re-release of the PSP, it's the sequel, it's going to have all these amazing features. People said the same thing when the PlayStation 3 came out, you know, and now, here we are, how many years into the PS3 release, how many people are still talking about Bluetooth? Just think about it. I don't think of anyone that goes and buys a PS3 because it has Bluetooth. Want to know why? Because Bluetooth fucking sucks. It's not as good as the wireless technology that the 360 uses, and in fact, most people who own both systems say, yeah, I don't even use voice chat on PS3 because the voice quality is horrible, and I like, if I'm going to do that, I'll play the game on Xbox 360 because it doesn't use shitty Bluetooth. And I feel it's the same thing's going to happen with the NGP. Everyone's going to buy it. Wow, there's all these great games. And then you're going to say, wait a minute, why the fuck am I playing Uncharted 2 on this fucking little thing when I have a PS3 on a giant screen and awesome surround sound over there that greatly enhances the experience? I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Why buy a console that's just as powerful as your current generation console that's on a tiny fucking screen with little speakers? It's nonsensical. And Sony's trying to, again, push technology that no one is really going to be able to utilize or want after that initial hype wave. That's my opinion. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people that love, they play their DS to death. They play their PSP to death. But realistically, I'm not seeing that this is going to be any kind of a major deal. It just doesn't make sense. Portable games are meant to be time killers. Give me a good puzzle game that I can kill 45 minutes with in the doctor's waiting room. Give me the next Final Fantasy Tactics, where I can play it for a couple hours on a plane. Don't give me a blockbuster AAA title on a tiny fucking screen with shitty speakers. But that's just my opinion. Alright, next question is, hey Phil, what are your thoughts on the Heavy Rain movie? What should they put in it? Alright, the language is a little screwed up. Should Ethan and Madison get together? Should they kill off some of the main characters? Will you watch it when it comes out? Because Heavy Rain was one of your favorite games of 2010. That's from Mandark. If you don't know what he's talking about, yes, they've announced that they are in pre-production of making a Heavy Rain movie, which is exactly what I talked about a couple months ago in one of my Ask the King videos, incidentally. And I think it could go a bunch of different ways. I think if they stick to the script of the game, okay, and maybe even get some of the people who did the mocap for the game, like if you've seen Scott Shelby, the actor who played him looks exactly like him. Obviously, that's the person you should pick to do that role. If they do it like that, and I think this is a great opportunity, and here's why. If anyone ever saw the movie Clue, okay, the movie Clue, it's a murder mystery, just like Heavy Rain, but it's also a comedy, okay? Heavy Rain's not a comedy, but it has multiple endings, meaning the movie ends, and they're like, well, wait a minute, that's one possible ending, but what if this happened? And then they actually go back about 15 minutes, and they recap a completely different scenario that could have ended the movie, and they do that twice. Why couldn't Heavy Rain do that? Why couldn't Heavy Rain do, like, best case scenario, or worst case scenario, then best case scenario, and then do, like, middle ground, which is the realistic ending to the game, where not everything is perfect, but, some things go right. So I think really this is an opportunity to make a movie it breaks new ground. A movie with multiple endings in the same movie, and not that you pick it, for example, but maybe take some of the interesting different branches that the game could take and run with it. And I think that could be a really good movie. Do I think they're going to do that with the movie? Absolutely not. It's probably going to be a shitty movie just like they're doing with Uncharted, completely changing the plot. The people who would probably fit the roles, they're not picking them, and that movie's going to suck dick. So, it's probably what's going to happen, but we'll see. A couple more questions here, then we'll get to the Twitter questions. Actually, one more question. Okay. Phil, I came across a post of yours from Shiuka.com where you mentioned that while you were working full-time, you did not dedicate enough time to practicing Street Fighter 4, or Super either, I'm assuming, to be a top player. That is correct. I want to know if you feel that anyone who has a full-time job doesn't have enough time to practice any fighting game, not just Street Fighter 4, enough to be a top player. Along those same lines, how much practice, hours, weeks, or however you want to measure it, you think it takes to be able to be a top contender? Are there any other factors you think limit one's ability to be a top fighting game player? For instance, a small local scene. That question is from Private Joker. It's an outstanding question, but I have to give it a short answer because I have to get to Twitter questions. Take a look at the people who've been placing at EVO. And excluding Justin Wong because he fucked up last EVO, but obviously Justin Wong, Ricky Ortiz, a lot of these people have been playing these games full time, meaning they signed with some gaming team who sponsors them to fly all over the country and sometimes the world, in the case of Justin Wong, to play these games all the fucking time. And this is all these people do. I personally know a couple people in New York who play the game like 8 hours a day. I'm not even kidding. Like, all right, I get up and I gotta play 2 hours online. Then I'll do something, and then I'll go play my co-players here offline for a couple hours, and then we'll go online again. Then we're gonna travel to a tournament tomorrow, so all day we'll be playing it. It's a lot different. Back when I used to play it, there weren't a lot of people who took it that seriously. Everyone kind of had their own personal life with their own job and their own family and everything going on. And then that was like their side hobby. Now it's starting to change. It's starting to become almost like a professional sport where there are people who are taking it seriously enough that it's their full-time focus. Kind of funny because I used to always be on one side of the fence having a full-time job, but now that I don't have it and I'm trying to turn this YouTube career into my job, this might become my main focus, meaning the actual fighting games may become my main focus, and so stuff kind of changing for me. So honestly, I can't answer 100% your question, Private Joker, because I have never been in the arena where I've been able to dedicate enough time to become, say, a top-level tournament player besides Super Turbo, but that was kind of a different scenario. What I can say is this. Number one, you absolutely need to have a good local scene. If you don't have good people to play locally, you will not get good enough at the game. Then once you've built a good local scene of, a bunch of people who play the game actively and giving you active competition, then you absolutely need to start traveling. And the reason I say that is this. Perfect example, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, okay? When the game came out, there was a large local scene on the East Coast. Everyone on the East Coast constantly played each other, whether it was New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. We were all playing each other, Massachusetts, we were all playing each other, and we all knew each other's styles. Then, at one ECC, these people came from Seattle, and one of them got Sprotron, got second place. I mean, we're kicking everyone's ass, and it was because they had a completely different play style that they honed over in Seattle. So you really need to expose yourself to the maximum amount of players and the maximum amount of play styles in order to become a tournament-level competitor. Now, when you think about that, the question is how much exposure is enough, and in my experience, you really need to expose yourself a significant amount to a large variety of people. So, for example, if you want to really do well at EVO this year, you probably have to attend local tournaments in your area. You'd have to do a hell of a lot of practice with your local players. You'd have to travel to probably your regional events. So for me, that means going to Winter Brawl, maybe going to Final Round, maybe going to some of the events in Chicago or Atlantic City or Florida. And then once I get all that exposure from all those variety of people, taking what I learned, coming back to the local scene, absorbing it into my gameplay style, trying to dominate, my local scene with what I've learned, and then going to EVO. That's the way to win. It's very hard to just sit around and play by yourself or play with a certain very isolated amount of people and become extremely good unless you find a game exploit or a tactic that's extremely useful and no one else knows about it. The one exception to the rule obviously these days is online play, where you don't have to travel necessarily to play. The problem is, as a lot of people know, the netcode is not exceptional in the US for these games. It doesn't work very well, and so it could be very hard to play seriously competitive matches online. In fact, I know people who play online all the time, then they go to a tournament and they're like, oh, how did that happen? That's not supposed to happen. And the answer is, yeah, it is supposed to happen. The thing is, online with all the lag and the input drops and all those factors, they're playing a play style that doesn't actually work in an offline environment, and then they're surprised when it doesn't work offline. But ultimately, the thing that you really need is money. You need the time and the money and the freedom to be able to travel and play these different people. And having a full-time job, it can be very difficult. If you don't have a job that, number one, is flexible with your time off, that gives you a lot of time off, and that pays you enough to travel around the country comfortably, it could be very difficult. And so, yeah, there is, even though there's this strong online community, there still is a learning curve for a lot of people to become pro players. I don't want anyone to think that, because I've been talking about input shortcuts and things like that, that it's all easy mode. It's not. It's still difficult. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that you need. So if you think that you could basically be able to do a lot of that stuff, then you probably have a chance of being a top player. If not, your chances are significantly shortened. It doesn't mean that you can't be a top player that's going to win. It just means it's going to be a lot harder for you. All right, now on to Twitter questions. We've got 4 this week, and then that is it. First question is from Shane Cable, and his question is, do you think that in the future motion controls such as Kinect, PS Move, etc. will be the norm ahead of controllers? The answer is this. The only way that they could is if the controls for games are significantly dumbed down. Right now, first of all, keyboard and mouse is the most precise method of control. Handheld controllers are kind of like the medium level when it comes to being precise, and then motion controls is the most new technology, not precise at all, kind of hard to get precision motion movements, precision shots, and things like that. If they dumb down games enough that it doesn't need precision controls, then yeah, those could definitely be the controls of the future. But for most of the games that I play, I really don't think that motion controls could work. And the other thing that a lot of people don't talk about a lot is motion controls need physical activity. Physical activity makes you tired. I'm sorry, but who the hell's going to sit there and play a 10-hour game of Uncharted when every fucking jump they need to get up and jump in place like this? You know what I mean? You're going to get tired after a while, and so it's going to be really hard to take these hardcore style games and control them with a control scheme that needs physical movement. So that's just my take. I think that hardcore games will still stay on controllers, and then possibly there will be some crossover and interaction, but I think it's really going to be the more casual games will have the motion controls in the future. Next question is from Wogrim, and his question is, have you reconsidered doing direct feed since seeing live audio mixing in action via Howard's stream? Now, of course, he's talking about the Don'tBlowThis.com Super Turbo Revolution stream that we do every few weeks. That's a funny question, because you would really love to see the fucking computer that they have hooked up to get that stream to work. It's a beast. It has a massive video card. It's got a 900-watt power supply that I bought that was extremely expensive. It's got all kinds of, things plugged into it. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane, this beast of a fucking PC that they built to do that stream. My PC sucks, my desktop. It really is a piece of crap at this point. It's starting to crap out on me, and so that's why I'm looking to buy a Mac very soon for video editing purposes. And at that point, probably my desktop PC will just end up being something to go on the internet, and that's it. So, no, unfortunately, I don't have a monster PC that could pretty much handle what I would be looking to do. And being that I'm going to need to buy a Mac for video editing, I really don't see that I'm going to be able to afford another computer on top of the Mac for, doing the direct feed and stuff like that. Plus, again, I've said this to people before, it's a lot of extra work for direct feed. The best direct feed footage, honestly, is like, it's done after the fact, meaning they do the direct feed, then they do the voiceover after the fact, or it is recorded at the same time, but then they do video editing to get the commentary over it. That's the best direct feed footage there is, and I can't do that. As you know, my playthroughs have so many parts, it would take so long to video edit every single part, it doesn't make sense. Not saying that I'm never going to do it, just saying right now it's not viable because I would need a completely new desktop PC. The next question is from Couganation. Okay. His question is, which of the big games that are supposed to come out this year do you think will flop? We're running out of time, so let me hurry up. What do I think will flop? I don't know. It's very hard to tell, but one thing I can say, and I hope that PS3 users don't take this the wrong way, but Killzone 2 was supposed to be the Call of Duty killer, and yeah, it sold a lot, but it didn't sell anywhere near as close to Call of Duty, and it was pretty much considered a failure sales-wise. Will Killzone 3 change that? I have no idea. I'm going to play the demo soon, so I guess I'll find out, but, or not the demo, but the beta. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this year. There's so many blockbuster titles, I can't honestly answer that question. The last question this year is from SoCal84, and it is, would you mind making a segment comparing Dead Space 2 to Singularity's multiplayer? Here is the segment. Singularity's multiplayer sucks monkey dick. Dead Space 2 multiplayer is actually pretty good. Alright, that's it for this episode of Ask the King. That was a shit ton of questions. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you guys next time. And my phone is ringing, apparently. It's vibrating, so I gotta go. See you next time. Thanks a lot.